All glories to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, Chapter 22, The Process of Devotional Service. In the 22nd chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the process of devotional service. In the beginning, he describes the truth about the living entity and the super excellence of devotional service. He then describes the uselessness of mental speculation and mystic yoga. In all circumstances, the living entity is recommended to accept the path of devotional service as personally explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The speculative method of the so-called jnanis is considered a waste of time, and that is proved in this chapter. An intelligent person should abandon the process of karmakan, jnanakan, and mystic yoga. One should give up all these useless processes and take seriously to the path of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's life will be successful. If one takes the Krishna consciousness fully, even though he may sometimes be agitated due to having previously practiced mental speculation and yoga mysticism, he will be saved by Lord Krishna himself. The fact is that devotional service is bestowed by the blessings of a pure devotee. Sa Mahatma Su Durlabha. A pure devotee is the supreme transcendentalist, and one has to receive his mercy for one's dormant Krishna consciousness to be awakened. One has to associate with pure devotees if one has firm faith in the words of a great soul. Pure devotional service will awaken. In this chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu differentiates between a pure devotee and others. He also describes the characteristics of a pure devotee. A devotee's most formidable enemy is association with women in an enjoying spirit. Association with non-devotees is also condemned because it is also a formidable enemy on the path of devotional service. One has to fully surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna and give up attraction for women and non-devotees. The 6 symptoms of fully surrendered souls are also described in this chapter. Devotional service has been divided into 2 categories: regulative devotional service, and spontaneous love. There are 64 items listed in regulative devotion service, and out of these 64, the last 5 are considered very important. By practicing even one of the 9 processes of devotional service, one can become successful. Speculative knowledge and mystic yoga can never help one in devotional service. Pious activity, non-violence, sense control, and regulation are not separate from devotional service in its pure form. If one engages in devotional service, all good qualities follow. One does not have to cultivate them separately. Spontaneous devotional service arises when one follows a pure devotee who is awakened to spontaneous love of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the symptoms of devotees who are already situated in spontaneous love of God. He also describes the devotees who are trying to follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees. Text 1. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Tam Karunar Navam Kalavapi Ati Budheyam Bhaktir Yena Prakashita. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is an ocean of transcendental mercy, and although the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is very confidential, he has nonetheless manifested it so nicely, even in this age of Kali, the age of quarrel. 2. Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 3. Eita kahilun sambandha tatvera vichara Veda shastre upadeshe Krishna ekasara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have described one's relationship with Krishna in various ways. This is the subject matter of all the Vedas. Krishna is the center of all activities. 4. Ipekahi suna abhideya lakshana Yaha hoite pai Krishna, Krishna premadana. Now I shall speak about the characteristics of devotional service, by which one can attain the shelter of Krishna and his loving transcendental service. 5. Krishna bhakti abhideya sarva shastrekaya ateva muni gana kariyache nischaya. A human being's activities should be centered only on devotional service to Lord Krishna. That is the verdict of all Vedic literatures, and all saintly people have firmly concluded this. 6. Shrutir mata prishta dishtati bhavat aradhana vidim yatha matur vani smritir apitata bhakti bhagini puranadhya yeva sahaja nivahaste tad anuga atha satyam gyatam murahara bhavan eva saranam. When the mother Vedas, Shruti, is questioned as to whom to worship, she says that you are the only Lord and worshipable object. Similarly, the corollaries of the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, give the same instructions, just like sisters. The Puranas, which are like brothers, follow in the footsteps of their mother. O enemy of the demon Mura, the conclusion is that you are the only shelter. Now I have understood this in truth. Purport. This quotation from the Vedic literature was spoken to the Lord by great sages. 7. Advaya jnana tattva Krishna svayam bhagavan Swarupa Shakti Rupe Tanrahaya Avastana. Krishna is the non-dual, absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. Although he is one, he maintains different personal expansions and energies for his pastimes. Purport. The Lord has many potencies, and he is non-different from all these potencies, because the potencies and the potent cannot be separated. They are identical. Krishna is described as the source of all potencies, and he is also identified with the external potency, the material energy. Krishna also has internal potencies or spiritual potencies, which are always engaged in his personal service. His internal potency is different from his external potency. Krishna's internal potency and Krishna himself, who is the potent, are always identical. 8. Samsavibhinam sarupe anavistara ananta vaikunta brahmande karena vihara. Krishna expands himself in many forms. Some of them are personal expansions and some are separate expansions. Thus he performs pastimes in both the spiritual and material worlds. The spiritual worlds are the Vaikuntha planets, and the material universes are the Brahmandas, gigantic globes governed by Lord Brahma. 9. Svamsavistara chaturvyuha avatara gana vibhinam sajivatanra sakti te ganana. Expansions of personal self, of his personal self, like the quadruple manifestations of Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva, descend as incarnations from Vaikuntha to this material world. The separated expansions are the living entities. Although they are expansions of Krishna, they are counted among his different potencies. Purport. The personal expansions are known as Vishnu Tattva, and the separated expansions are known as Jiva Tattva. Although the Jivas, living entities, are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are still counted among his multi-potencies. This is fully described by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7.5. Apareyam mitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam tarayate jagat. Although the living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels, they are Prakriti, not Purusha. Sometimes Prakriti, a living entity, attempts to imitate the activities of the Purusha. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, living entities conditioned in this material world claim to be God. They are thus illusioned. A living entity cannot be on the level of Vishnu Tattva, or the personality of Godhead at any stage. Therefore, it is ludicrous for a living entity to claim to be God. Advanced spiritualists would never accept such a thing. Such claims are made to cheat ordinary foolish people. The Krishna consciousness movement declares war against such bogus incarnations. The bogus propaganda put out by people claiming to be God has killed God consciousness all over the world. Members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be very alert to defy these rascals who are presently misleading the whole world. One such rascal, known as Pondraka, appeared before Lord Krishna, and the Lord immediately killed him. Of course, those who are Krishna's servants cannot kill such imitation gods, but they should try their best to defeat them through the evidence of Shastra, authentic knowledge, received through the disciplic succession. 10. Sehi vipinam sajiva duita prakara eka nitya mukta eka nitya samsara. The living entities, jivas, are divided into two categories. Some are eternally liberated and others are eternally conditioned. 11. Nitya mukta nitya Krishna charane unmukha Krishna parishara nama unje seva sukha. Those who are eternally liberated are always awake to Krishna consciousness, and they render transcendental loving service at the feet of Lord Krishna. They are to be considered eternal associates of Krishna, and they are eternally enjoying the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. 12. Nitya Banda Krishna Hoite Nitya Bahir Mukha Nitya Samsara Bunje Narakadi Dukkha. Apart from the ever liberated devotees, there are the conditioned souls who always turn away from the service of the Lord. They are perpetually conditioned in this material world and are subjected to the material tribulations brought about by different bodily forms and hellish conditions. 13. Seido se maya pisachi dandakare tare adhyatmi kari tapatraya kare jari mare. Due to his being opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy, Maya. He is thus ready to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, the inimical behavior of other living entities, and the natural disturbances caused by the demigods. 14 through 15. Kama krodera dasahana taralati kaya brahmite brahmite yari sadhu bhajya paya tamra upadesha mantre pisachi palaya Krishna bhakti paya tabe Krishna nikatayaya. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires, and when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy, Maya. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician, whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with devotional service to Lord Krishna, and in this way he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. An explanation of verses 8 through 15 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravahabhasya. The Lord is spread throughout the creation in his quadruple expansions and incarnations. Krishna is fully represented with all potencies in each and every personal extension, but the living entities, although separated expansions, are also considered one of the Lord's energies. The living entities are divided into two categories, the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. Those who are ever liberated never come in contact with Maya, the external energy. The ever conditioned souls are always under the clutches of external energy. This is described by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Naivikesha gunamai mamamaya duratyaya. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. The Nitya Badhas are always conditioned by the external energy, and the Nitya Muktas never come in contact with the external energy. Sometimes an ever liberated personal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descends into this universe just as the Lord descends. Although working for the liberation of conditioned souls, the messenger of the Supreme Lord remains untouched by the material energy. Generally, ever liberated persons live in the spiritual world as associates of Lord Krishna, and they are known as Krishna Parishada, associates of the Lord. Their only business is enjoying Lord Krishna's company. And even though such eternally liberated persons come within this material world to serve the Lord's purpose, they enjoy Lord Krishna's company without stoppage. The ever liberated person who works on Krishna's behalf enjoys Lord Krishna's company through his engagement. The ever conditioned soul, provoked by lusty desires to enjoy the material world, is forced to transmigrate from one body to another. Sometimes he is elevated to higher planetary systems, and he mentions he is degraded to hellish planets, and sometimes he is degraded to hellish planets and subjected to the tribulations of the external energy. Due to being conditioned by the external energy, the conditioned soul with this material world gets two kinds of bodies, a gross body and a subtle material body composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Due to the gross and subtle bodies, he is subjected to the threefold miseries, Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, and Adhidaivika. Miseries arising from the body and mind, other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by demigods from higher planetary systems. The conditioned soul, subjected to the threefold material miseries, is ceaselessly kicked by Maya, and this is his disease. If by chance he meets a saintly person who works on Krishna's behalf to deliver the conditioned souls, and if he agrees to abide by his order, he can gradually approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. 16. Kamadinam katina katidaha palita durni deshas desham jata mai na karuna na trapa nupashanti utri jaitan ata yadu pate sampratam labda buddhis svam ayata saranam abhyam mam niyunchvatma dasye. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal devotional service and save me. Purport. This verse is also quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2.35. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are saying, Hare, O energy of the Lord, Om, my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord in his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sitaram, or Lakshmi Narayana. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy consort, so that he may engage in their transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of a living entity. 17. Krishna Bhakti Haya Abhi Deya Pradhana Bhakti Mukha Nirikshaka Karma Yoga Jnana. Devotional service to Krishna is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul: karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti, but all the others are dependent on bhakti. 18. Ehi sabha sadhanera ati tucha bhala Krishna bhakti vinataha jite nare phala. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant, unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Jnana and yoga cannot give the desired results. In the Vedic scriptures, stress is sometimes given to fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, and the mystic yoga system. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results without being touched by Krishna Bhakti, devotional service. In other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love for Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam states, Sabhai Pumsham Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhok Sanje Ahaitu Ki Apratihat Yat Jayat Masu Prashaditati. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Karma, Jnana, and Yoga cannot actually awaken love of God. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service, and the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in other so-called achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally, face to face, But when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana, or yoga. 19. Naishkarmyam api achuta bhava varjitam raso bhate jnanam alam niranjanam kuta puna shasvat abhadram isvare nacharpitam karma yad apyakaranam. When pure knowledge is beyond all material affinity, but is not dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it does not appear very beautiful, although it is knowledge without a material tinge. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the beginning and transient by nature? If they are not utilized for the devotional service of Lord Krishna, how can they be very attractive? This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12. Even after writing many Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva felt very morose. Therefore, his spiritual master, Narada Dev, told him that he could be happy by writing about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up to that time, Srila Vyasadeva had written the Karma-kand and Jnana-kand sections of the Vedas, but he had not written about the Upasana-kand, or Bhakti. Thus his spiritual master, Narada, chastised him and advised him to write about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Vyasadeva began writing Srimad Bhagavatam. 20. Tapasvino dana para yasasvino manasvino mantra vidha su mangalaha chimam navindanti vina yad arpanam tasmai subhadra shavashe namo namaha. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, those who are engaged in meditation and mental speculation, and even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras are not able to obtain any auspicious results, although they are engaged in auspicious activities. If they do not dedicate their actions to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I therefore repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose glories are always auspicious. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.17. (21) Kevala jnana mukti dite nare bhakti vine Krishnon mukhe sei mukti haya vina jnane. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, even without knowledge, one can obtain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. Purport. One cannot attain liberation simply by speculative knowledge. Even though one may be able to distinguish between Brahman and matter, one's liberation will be hampered if one is misled into thinking that the living entity is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one falls down again onto the material platform because considering oneself the Supreme Person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is offensive. When such a person comes in contact with a pure devotee, he can actually become liberated from material bondage and engage in the Lord's services. A prayer by Bilva Mangala Thakur is relevant here. Bhakti Stvai Stiratara Bhagavan Yarishyat Devenana Falati Divya Kishora Murti Muti svayam mukulitanjali sabate sman. Dharmartha kama kataya samhaya pariksha. O my Lord, if one engages in your pure devotional service with determination, you become visible in your original transcendental youthful form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as liberation is concerned, she stands before the devotees with folded hands, waiting to render service. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are all automatically attained without separate endeavor. Krishna Charitamrta 107. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nimalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the worldwide devotees. All glories to all human and non-human living entities. Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Haribol. Hare Krishna.